What's up everyone, it's Endymion, and for the past weekend I've been enjoying my time with Star Wars Jedi Survivor on PlayStation 5. The game feels huge in scope and full of things to discover, even though I barely feel like I've scratched the surface. As I was enjoying my time with the game in its first 2 days of release, I started to see a massive online controversy, with thousands of players, mostly PC gaming related, saying that Jedi Survivor is broken at release. I should also say before I go any further, don't worry about major spoilers. I'll only use footage from the first main mission and the first main area Kobo, so relax. Anyway, I saw this all going down and I felt like I was playing a different game than other people. I'm not saying Jedi Survivor doesn't have its problems on PS5, as most AAA games have some level of issues at release. But I was not in any way experiencing the level of glitches other players were apparently having. Then as I looked deeper into the mess surrounding Survivor, it became clear that there seems to be a massive issue when it comes to the PC gaming side. And then it begged the question, who's to blame for this mess and why is it happening? And well, I may have an answer. To start off, there has been 6 major releases on PC that have all in some way, shape, or form launched completely busted on PC this year alone. It started with Forspoken, which ran like molasses on PC, with players baffled how Luminous Productions and Square Enix managed to fumble what should have been an easy win. But the bad news kept coming with the next game, which is EA's Wild Hearts, which is the publisher's response to Monster Hunter, which also launched completely busted and borderline unplayable, and again, it was mostly PC related. Next was Hogwarts Legacy with the same crap I've just said, and I should say I platinumed Legacy on PS5, and I had some glitches but nothing too glaring. And yes, yet again, this was almost exclusively on PC. Then we had Wolong Fallen Dynasty, another game I platinumed on PS5. And I had very little to no glitches when playing at release, except the game was horribly optimized for PC again. Then we had The Last of Us Part 1 on PC, which looked like a game made in Microsoft Paint at times, and made zero sense quality-wise, especially since it was made by Naughty Dog, although it wasn't ported by them. The PS5 release of Part 1 in September 2022, however, runs borderline flawlessly, so yet again, PC players suffer. And this now brings us to Jedi Survivor, the latest of the fabled broken PC ports, and as of the making of this video, we're only 4 months into the year. So what the hell is happening over there on PC exactly? In terms of Jedi Survivor, we should look at what EA's been doing behind the scenes, as I know it's easy to get lost in the glitz and glamour of Star Wars. But remember that Survivor is made by Respawn Entertainment, the same developer studio that also works on Apex Legends, which is a huge battle royale game. Anyway, back in February 2023, during an unscheduled Zoom call, EA brought together over 200 of Respawn's quality assurance testers in order to speak to them. And in one fell swoop, EA laid off almost the entirety of the Apex Legends QA staff. Eurogamer's Matt Wales, who reported on this, said, and I quote, "QA testers were informed they were losing their jobs effective immediately during a mandatory Zoom meeting held at 8 a.m. CT by their contracting agency Magnet Global. Sources told the site that EA's whole Baton Rouge QA team has now been disbanded as a result of the call, amounting to what one former employee called essentially their entire Apex Legends QA staff." EA did not comment on the layoffs directly, but did confirm changes at its Baton Rouge office. "As part of our ongoing global strategy," the publisher wrote, "we are expanding the distribution of our Apex Legends testing team and ending testing execution that's been concentrated in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, impacting services provided by our third-party provider. Our global team, inclusive of remote play testers across the US, enables us to increase the hours per week we've able to test and optimize the game," EA continued, "and reflects a commitment to understand and better serve our growing community around the world. Workers impacted by today's layoffs will reportedly be given 60 days severance pay." End quote. Of course, some may say what affects Apex might not necessarily have anything to do with Star Wars. But when EA single-handedly throws out 200 employees whose entire job was to test content before it releases, it seems Respawn was strapped for actual QAs when it came to their other projects like Jedi Survivor. And when it came to testing the product for bugs and glitches before release, Respawn seems to have had no choice but make the paying customer the new QA tester, which is sadly way too common, especially when it comes to modern gaming. I'm not going to lie, Jedi Survivor on PS5 does have some issues. I'm noticing texture pop-ins, draw distances not being loaded in properly, and the occasional dip in frames below 60. But it's nowhere near as bad as PC, which has so many videos already circulating of Survivor downright struggling to even play properly. One Twitter user showed this video and it kinda says it all.
I'm almost scared. It's fighting me.
And then we have a friend of the channel, YouTuber Smotown, who covers lore for Elden Ring and other games as well. He posted recently that the game was so bad on PC, he opted to play on Series X, and even there the logo screen struggled to even showcase properly. These problems are not unknown and they don't just magically appear. Respawn, and especially EA, knew Jedi Survivor was not up to snuff for release, yet they did the exact same thing when Wild Hearts released as well. It's even more weird in Wild Hearts' case since that's a brand new AAA IP. And you'd think you'd want to sell your new IP in the best shape possible, but instead it's shipped running like ass cheeks. The unfortunate reality of today's modern gaming world is since devs and publishers have such easy access to the internet, they know they don't need to release a game fully operational since people will buy it regardless. So these studios can bask in the monetary gain and meet quotas while fixing it as they go. And unfortunately, the people who suffer the most are the paying customers like you or me. And like I've said in a previous video about broken games, this problem only seems to be synonymous when it comes to modern gaming. You don't buy a car from a dealership without that vehicle being put through extensive quality assurance to ensure that you don't kill somebody or yourself while driving it because the brakes don't work. You wouldn't buy a laptop brand new with the keyboard missing and having the screen only work 2 out of the 10 times you start it up. Yet when it comes to gaming, these million-dollar productions get released in such broken states like Jedi Survivor that it's incredible that it keeps happening, and it's for all the wrong reasons.
We're sorry.
One player named Weird Cantaloupe 2757, great name by the way, on Reddit said they died during a certain sequence which requires you to ride an elevator. And since they died, the game sent them back before the elevator, but fast travel was disabled now, and the elevators refused to work.
We're sorry.
So the only fix was to restart your entire game, which is just not what should be happening. Even PC Gamer has come out and condemned Jedi Survivor for its poor performance on PC. Yet players have called out PC Gamer for being two-faced since they gave Survivor an 8 out of 10. I even combed through their review and PC Gamer says they fixed their problems apparently with Nvidia. But when the game runs so universally bad for so many, why would they give it a glowing review? Why would PC Gamer lie to their fanbase about a game's performance, then double down on the hate mob now that it's cool to do so? The reason is probably hate clicks, but also because review sites, especially the bigger ones that are owned by investors, are usually always lying to you and are in bed with the very publishers that supply them with games. And amidst all of this, EA and Respawn have since officially responded by saying, quote, "We are aware that Star Wars Jedi Survivor isn't performing to our standards for a percentage of our PC players, in particular those with high-end machines or certain specific configurations. While there is no single comprehensive solution for PC performance, the team has been working on fixes we believe will improve performance across a spectrum of configurations. We are committed to fixing these issues as soon as possible, but each patch requires significant testing to ensure we don't introduce new problems. Thanks for understanding and apologies to any of our players experiencing these issues. We will continue to monitor performance across all platforms and share update timing as soon as it is available," end quote. This is all corporate talk for we knew the issues beforehand, but we really wanted your money and needed to impress our investors for the quarterly earnings call. So we deliberately lied and deceived you into buying something for the second time this year alone because we think you're stupid and deep down we low-key kind of hate you. Of course, that's just how I interpret it anyway. Survivor being broken upon release is also sadly very on brand for Electronic Arts as well. There's been so many games they've released in the last 10 years that have all been broken at launch. A great example of this would be Mass Effect Andromeda, which was so poorly received by fans that EA forced BioWare to cancel all DLC plans for the game almost immediately upon its release. Andromeda's facial animations especially were terribly received, and the game even to this day still runs slightly off on PlayStation 4 at least. And many would likely agree the only somewhat decent way to play it is ironically on PC with a crap ton of mods in order to fix it. Then of course there was Battlefield 5 and 2042, which were both mired in controversies and technical problems at release. These issues caused so much ire for EA that it all but killed those games' forward momentum due to how badly they were received by fans. Word of mouth is of course a very powerful way of ensuring your products and franchises live on, and it's so unfortunate that Jedi Survivor is the newest sacrifice in the pantheon of EA's horrific decisions. There was even an article from 2021 when Respawn released the next-gen version of Fallen Order, and even then the game doesn't work properly. And let me remind you, this re-release of Fallen Order was 2 years after its initial release, and it had the added bonus of being on more powerful hardware. And even then, for some unknown reason, Respawn couldn't get Fallen Order to be silky smooth. This all likely means that if history repeats itself with EA and Respawn, that Jedi Survivor will never fully recover and won't ever become a technically sound game, likely ever. And knowing EA, they'd rather get a game out even if it isn't finished so Andrew Wilson can buy another house. This also makes me really worried for the next Dragon Age, which EA and BioWare ensure is on track to release and it will be great, but based on their history, I'm not inclined to believe them, and that really sucks. Players spend far too much money on these games to not have them working properly at release. I understand a glitch or two in the AAA space. I'm talking like maybe you get stuck in the geometry or clothing clips through other clothing, but when you have literal articles being written in your release window about how to fix the HDR in your game, it's just baffling. Why should we have to fix the HDR? Why not just make it work to begin with? This is honestly why the best way to approach modern gaming is to simply not buy into it at all until at least a few months later. The people who are waiting on Jedi Survivor to go on sale will absolutely have a much better time with it. And the people who wait a year or more will have their patience awarded with an actual working product, and it'll be cheaper too. Buying AAA games at release these days is like spinning the chamber on a revolver and hoping your brains don't get splattered. I mean, I haven't even played Atomic Heart yet because I hear the game is still buggy, and it's been 2 months since release. And while EA will make money in the short term, in the long term they'll make less. Since not only will the game just be cheaper, but less people will buy it due to word of mouth being so bad. And I feel awful for Respawn because they're easily EA's best developer under their roster by a mile. And they deserve better than to have to release their passion project onto fans in such a terrible state. It's a lose-lose situation for both players and devs with only EA winning it out. I guess the house really does always win, huh? Even online games like Destiny 2 have been running like ass lately, so it's clear that there's just something running afoul in the gaming industry as of late. Clearly, people are overworked, there's not enough staff, and when there is enough staff, companies like EA lay them all off and then are astounded when their games run like ass at release. You simply cannot make this stuff up, unfortunately. And all this will do is harm the Star Wars brand even more and cause players to have even less trust in EA, Respawn, and the myriad of other devs who've already released unfinished messes upon the masses. And this does not bode well for future releases too, with games like Redfall coming out imminently and only being able to target 30 FPS at launch. Even when Microsoft claims the Xbox Series X is the world's most powerful console, which if you actually believe that, I have some oxygen in a glass bottle to sell you, because if you believe that, then you must be gullible as hell. I mean, Redfall will run flawlessly at launch. I'm sure there's nothing to worry about. Then there's Starfield, which comes from the notorious OG devs over at Bethesda, whose games always launch like oil trucks on fire. So what's going to happen there? Maybe if companies stopped treating their big tentpole game releases and the overworked devs like garbage, we'd have some sanity in this industry. Some users on Twitter have suggested that one of the reasons why PC gaming especially always runs into these problems is because Steam lacks proper certification processes. Basically, in order to pass certifications on Xbox or PlayStation, the publisher or devs need to pay money in order to have that process approved. But on Steam, for example, there's little to no barrier when it comes to making a game and then releasing it. Of course, those certification processes still allow broken games to get through, even on Xbox and PlayStation, since we can't forget the release of Cyberpunk 2077, which was terrible at launch as well. There are systems in place on certain platforms like Xbox and PlayStation where basically Microsoft or Sony can set ultimatums to games. And if those games don't reach a certain quality bar after a certain date that's placed, Microsoft or Sony can enact that power and delist the game from the platform. This was essentially what happened with Cyberpunk on PlayStation, and if the problems on PlayStation for Jedi Survivor were as bad as PC's, that could have happened as well. But I would say, so far anyway on PS5 for me, the game runs decently like 80% of the time. Which still isn't perfect, but it's still nowhere near as nuclear as the PC release. Ultimately, what this entire fiasco will end up doing to not just Jedi Survivor but other games is make less people pre-order at launch. And when pre-orders aren't as high, this data causes publishers to budget their promotions and post DLC budgets based on those pre-orders, which obviously wages interest. So if future games don't get as many pre-orders, it could in theory hamper the post-content schedule of future games. Which means in plain English, the less people pre-order, the less big publishers will invest in their games. But it's not your fault that this is happening, and no matter how these companies jump around trying to explain it, the reality is that they are responsible for creating a situation like Jedi Survivors and others by their own hands. It's not your fault if a mechanic can't fix your car. It's also not your problem if the oven at a restaurant suddenly stops working. And it most certainly is not your fault and should not be your responsibility to beta test AAA games at release. Because these big companies have more than enough money to do these things within their own power, I assure you. The simple reasoning for all of this that I have been saying since the beginning of this video and why Jedi Survivor runs like ass could literally just be summed up like this. Electronic Arts and their investors are greedy as hell and don't value their customers. And if they did, they would not have released both Wild Hearts and now Jedi Survivor in such unplayable states for millions of fans. It's baffling that we live in a world where fans are expected to show up to support the things they love, but it's also totally expected for publishers and developers to mistreat you for being loyal. It's like we're all in this abusive relationship with the behemoth that is the gaming industry, and my dear viewer, I don't know about you, but I am getting tired of it. So thank you for watching, subscribe, share, and let me know what else you want to see in the future. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Sorry.